What's going on, guys? I hope you're all having a great day today. So this video is going to be the start of something new. This is going to be the start of the beauty of. And basically what this is me explaining what I believe to be the beauty of films that I find to be absolutely brilliant. Not films that I think are just good or even great, but brilliant films. The film that I'm going to be featuring today is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Now, of course, when it comes to low-budget horror films, our ceiling of brilliance has to come down just a smidge. Because we're not talking about Schindler's List, or The Empire Strikes Back, or Saving Private Ryan, or Shawshank Redemption, or The Dark Knight. We're not talking about movies like that. Which I could potentially talk about all of those in the future for this series, but I'd like to start with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's something simple but important to me. Because this is a film that I truly and wholeheartedly believe is the greatest horror film ever created. And this is a masterpiece of terror and suspense. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is truly the most macabre, disturbing, and unsettling film I have ever seen. And part of the beauty of the film is that it doesn't need to show you buckets of guts and gore to terrify you. Hooper knew how to petrify us through subtlety and implied violence. If you remember this film being gory, watch it again, because it's not gory at all. Trust me, I remember Pam's death, where she's put onto the meat hook. I remember that being incredibly gory, but when I first watched the film, but when I rewatched it when I got older, I realized that I was remembering it wrong, and it wasn't really bloody at all. Almost like John Carpenter's Halloween, and these two films are very similar in that regard, and they're both effective because of that. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre does a perfect job of building tension and a sense of dread throughout the entire first act. And I believe it has something to do with the fact that we're greeted in the opening shot by a rotting corpse. Because of that, the entire car ride to Sally and Franklin's grandparents' house just made me feel like I didn't want to go any further, because I truly grew to care about these characters, and I didn't want to see anything bad happen to them. We already had a welcoming interaction with one of the locals, being the hitchhiker, which ended up in chaos, as well as being served hillbilly barbecue at a gas station that didn't have gas, which may or may not, the barbecue may or may not have contained ingredients involving Homo sapiens. Unfortunately, that idea has now caused me to lose my appetite. The arrival at the grandparents' house is already relatively suspicious when one of the kids, and if I remember correctly, it's Franklin, finds a little necklace or a bracelet or something on the floor that's made out of bones. This only further adds to the tension because now we know that something sinister is going on here. Something's not right. Something not right is going on here. It's dark and it's sinister. And it only gets worse when Kirk and Pam decide that they want to go down to the swimming hole and do some backstrokes. Which to me, it's kind of funny how they don't have swimsuits on, nor were they carrying any, and I don't know if they brought any. But fair enough. It's a hot day in Texas. Swimming doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. And frankly, since it's going to just be Kirk and Pam, I'm guessing there probably wasn't going to be a whole lot of swimsuit wearing if they had brought swimsuits, if you know what I mean. But a house is noticed on the other side of the hill, and Pam and Kirk decide to go ask our friendly neighborhood cannibals for some gas for their car, as they were not able to obtain any from the gas station, where we're then greeted by Leatherface, who then murders Kirk and Pam, not out of evil, but out of fear. What I think is great about this from a horror filmmaking perspective is that this entire first act takes place during the daytime. The daytime should feel like a safe and secure time, but we have a skin mask wearing, sledgehammer wielding maniac killing people in broad daylight, so that makes it all the more terrifying to me. And when we get to the scene after he kills Jerry, yet again out of fear, we have a segment where Leatherface starts freaking out as he runs over to the window and looks all over, probably thinking to himself, where the hell are these people coming from, and why are they breaking into my house? And then after he sits down in regret and just stares into space, thinking about the heinous thing that he has just done. This is something about Leatherface that was lost in the terrible sequels and reboots, in my opinion. Leatherface isn't evil. He's not just a psychotic killing machine that just lives to kill. He's misunderstood. He isn't killing camp counselors for revenge like Jason Voorhees. He isn't killing children in their dreams just because he feels like it, like Freddy Krueger. And he isn't stalking babysitters and waiting to kill them in cold blood like Michael Myers. Leatherface is killing partially to defend his home, and partially because it's implied that this type of inhumane behavior was nailed into his brain at a young age, as we can see that he is mentally unable to act rationally at this point. But Leatherface ultimately just wants to be left alone, and you can tell that he feels a bit of regret after killing Jerry, which makes this even more terrifying. It's terrifying knowing that someone can have this type of inhumanity fostered into them, and it's sad. Okay, and I would like to move on to the dinner scene, as well as some of the other things that Sally endures throughout this original film, where her and Leatherface have a chase scene, which takes place after her crippled brother Franklin is murdered by Leatherface when they were out looking for their friends in the woods at night, which was probably not a good idea in hindsight, but Leatherface pops out and chainsaws Franklin to death. But they have a chase scene where ultimately they make a stop at the Sawyer house first, but ultimately they end up back at the gas station that they stopped at earlier to get gas. They didn't have any, but they also got the barbecue, which this is where we find out that my claims of them using Homo sapien ingredients to serve their barbecue, this is where my claims are substantiated. And it also appears that the owner, who's played brilliantly by Jim Sydow, is part of this whole charade and happens to be the father of the hitchhiker whom the gang met earlier, and as well as Leatherface. So Old Man Sawyer invites Sally over for dinner by putting a sack over her head and beating her with a broom and shoving her into the back of his pickup truck. When the family and their guests sit down to have their feast, this is where this turns into a disorienting, chaotic clusterfuck. And that's what makes it scary, as all we can really truly hear, other than the music, is the screams and the terror that Sally is displaying over everything that's happening. We see Old Man Sawyer and the hitchhiker laughing at her and mocking her, and just laughing at her overall misery and suffering. Luckily for Sally, she is able to find an escape route and hightail it the hell out of that house, where Leatherface decides to pursue the distressed girl out onto the road. And a truck driver pulls over to most likely help Sally, but also inquire about what it is exactly that he's witnessing, where he's met by Leatherface, which I'm sure the truck driver was very puzzled as to why there's a man in a mask with a suit on, dressed as a woman, holding a chainsaw, but he acts quickly by throwing a wrench at Leatherface, which causes him to injure himself, which ultimately helps Sally get away by hopping into the bed of some stranger's pickup truck, as Leatherface angrily swings his chainsaw around in the middle of the road. This scene, where Sally is laughing while trying not to have an existential breakdown, I then got a second after that to see and think about what Sally has lost throughout this movie. Her brother, her boyfriend, and her friends. But she lost something else. Her humanity, her sanity, her innocence. I don't care what the 2022 sequel tries to tell you, that she became a ranger and fought Leatherface and then died in a very, very disrespectful way. But no. That to me is not canon. Sally lost her humanity. She lost everything. Almost like how Leatherface lost his humanity. And to me, that's the beauty and the horror of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.